The moment I realized my lunchbox was missing, my stomach sank in a way that had nothing to do with hunger. It was one of those small, ordinary things that somehow carried the weight of my entire life inside it. And when I opened my desk drawer and found nothing but an old notebook and a broken pen, I felt exposed, as if someone had accidentally picked up a piece of my heart and carried it away without knowing what it meant to me. Before the story truly begins, take a second. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that small, unexpected moments can change a life, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this exist because of people like you. I had learned to cook out of necessity, not passion. Years earlier, after my marriage collapsed under the quiet weight of misunderstandings and exhaustion, I found myself alone in a small apartment in Ohio, working long hours as a systems analyst at a mid-sized tech firm. My ex-wife, Rachel, and I had once talked about growing old together, about Sunday dinners and noisy kitchens. Instead, we grew apart in silence. After the divorce, the kitchen became my refuge. Cooking was the one place where my hands felt useful and my mind felt calm. Each morning before work, I packed my lunch with care, not because it was impressive, but because it was one of the few ways I still knew how to take care of someone, even if that someone was just me. That Tuesday started like any other. I woke up before sunrise, made lemon herb chicken with roasted vegetables and a small container of homemade bread pudding I'd baked the night before. It was nothing fancy, but it tasted like effort, like patience. I placed it in my blue lunchbox, kissed the quiet air of my apartment goodbye, and drove to the office, already bracing myself for another long day of meetings and deadlines. Work had never been unkind to me, but it had never been warm either. I was reliable, quiet, the kind of employee people depended on without really knowing. Our office was open plan, filled with the soft hum of computers and the occasional laughter from the break room. Our boss, Margaret Caldwell, was respected and feared in equal measure. She was sharp, decisive, and distant, a woman who carried authority like a tailored jacket she never took off. Rumor had it she had been married once, years ago, but no one ever spoke about it openly. Around noon, I finally stood up to grab my lunch, only to discover it was gone. I checked the fridge in the break room, thinking maybe I'd left it there earlier, but it wasn't there either. That was when I noticed Claire standing near the conference table, laughing nervously with a few coworkers. Claire was friendly, impulsive, the kind of person who acted first and apologized later. When our eyes met, she froze for just a second too long. My heart dropped before she even spoke. She admitted, flushed and embarrassed, that she had grabbed my lunchbox by mistake and, realizing too late that it wasn't hers, had already given it to Margaret during a meeting. She'd thought it was a catered meal someone had brought in. The room felt suddenly too bright, too loud. I wanted to be angry, but mostly I felt small, as if something private had been placed under a spotlight without my consent. I spent the next hour pretending to work, my thoughts spiraling. That lunch wasn't just food. It was my routine, my quiet pride, my proof that I could still create something good. I imagined Margaret tossing it aside, unimpressed, or worse, laughing about it. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was overreacting, but the knot in my chest wouldn't loosen. Then, just as I was considering leaving early, Margaret appeared at my desk. The office seemed to hold its breath. She asked if we could talk in her office. My palms were damp as I followed her, bracing myself for a reprimand or an awkward apology. Instead, she surprised me. She told me she had eaten the lunch Claire brought her and that it was the best meal she'd had in years. She said it reminded her of a time when coming home felt comforting, when someone cared enough to cook. She admitted, almost reluctantly, that she wished she had a husband who could cook like that. There was no teasing in her voice, no sarcasm, just a quiet honesty that caught me off guard. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I apologized for the mix-up, my voice barely steady. She waved it off and thanked me, genuinely. She asked about the recipe, about where I'd learned to cook. I told her the truth, that it started after my divorce, that cooking helped me feel grounded. She listened, really listened, and for the first time, she didn't feel like just my boss. She felt human. Word spread quickly around the office. People who had barely noticed me before started stopping by my desk, asking about my lunches, about recipes, about my life. It was overwhelming and strange, being seen after so long of blending into the background. Part of me wanted to retreat, to hide again, but another part felt something warming inside my chest, something I hadn't felt in years. Over the following weeks, Margaret began inviting me to occasional meetings outside my usual responsibilities, not to overwork me, but to ask for my input, to involve me in projects that mattered. She even asked if I'd consider bringing in lunch again someday, half joking, half hopeful. I did, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. Cooking for others, I realized, didn't have to mean losing myself. It could mean sharing. At the same time, I started to confront parts of my past I'd avoided. The divorce had left me believing I wasn't enough, that my efforts went unnoticed. But here, in this unexpected way, something as simple as a lunchbox had reminded me that what I offered had value. Not because it impressed anyone, but because it was sincere. Margaret and I didn't become anything romantic, and that was never the point. What changed was the way we treated each other, and the way I treated myself. She began mentoring me, encouraging me to apply for a leadership role I never would have considered before. She told me I had patience, empathy, and attention to detail, qualities she said couldn't be taught. Hearing that from someone I respected shifted something deep inside me. One evening, long after most of the office had emptied, Margaret and I stood by the window overlooking the city lights. She spoke quietly about her own past, about choosing career over family, about wondering sometimes what might have been. I listened, not trying to fix anything, just being present. In that moment, I understood that everyone carries their own kind of hunger, and sometimes it has nothing to do with food. As months passed, my life slowly expanded. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from. I volunteered at a local shelter, teaching basic cooking classes on weekends. Each small step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd thought was gone forever. The office no longer felt like just a place I survived. It felt like a place where I belonged. Near the end of the year, during a small office gathering, Margaret publicly thanked me for my contributions, not just professionally, but for the way I'd quietly improved the culture of the team. She said kindness had a ripple effect, and sometimes it started with something as simple as a shared meal. I stood there, humbled, thinking about that missing lunchbox and how close I'd come to dismissing it as nothing. If this story has touched your heart, if it reminded you of the quiet power of kindness and the unexpected ways life can change, please take a moment now to like the video, share it, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who might need them more than they realize. Before the ending, I have one special request. Please comment below and tell us about a small, ordinary moment in your life that ended up meaning far more than you expected. Your story might inspire someone else. Today, my lunchbox still sits on my kitchen counter every morning, but it no longer feels like a symbol of loneliness. It feels like a reminder that even when life strips things down to their simplest form, there is still room to create, to care, and to connect. Sometimes, the smallest things we make with love have the power to feed not just our bodies, but our souls.